All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We're coming at you from
Jeff Lander's Redneck Compound
in BC, British Columbia. Give me a Canadian imitation, Aaron.
I can't do it under pressure. Devin, you can just talk. You don't have to fake it.
Yeah.
I said like 4 times already in the last few days, so it's rubbing off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're this is where we bear hunted with Jeff before.
Yeah.
But on this particular trip, we're moose hunting in British Columbia, and the weather has been awful. But before we get into the moose hunt, we've got guests on the show today. We've got Ben Jackson, who Aaron, give us a little intro for Ben.
Ben Jackson is very single, very disease-free. He's a dreamer. No. So, Ben, you're a pilot? Or no, you're a mechanic. And you met Jeff at the CrossFit gym, right?
That's right, yeah.
When Jeff was on one of his mini diets and mini workout programs.
A few years ago now.
And we met you last year in Alberta. You were kind of Brian's guide. I mean, I hung out with you guys for a couple of days. And then trying to think, I've talked to you off and on. It's hard to get a hold of me throughout the year. But and then you just came back from Alberta to help us out.
And I saw you when you were coming up here on your grizzly hunt in the spring at Jeff's place. And then, just got back from a week in Alberta and joined you guys for one day.
It was a good day to join, though.
Mm-hmm.
Glad you came along.
It was a great day.
And we've got Devin. And how old's Devin, Aaron?
Devin doesn't have fuzz on his nuts yet, but that's all right. And it's funny with Devin, I didn't put 2 and 2 together when Jeff hired you. I had already heard of you and your brother Riley and your dad. Your dad's real name's Dwayne, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwayne. But your dad's Wiener.
Yeah.
So I met Wiener through Clay. And Wiener your dad and Clay have been friends for how?
I don't even know how long.
Yeah, for years, Clay Lancaster. And you guys go hunt grizzlies every year, do all kinds of crap together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you work in the oil patch. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, we're going to have to lead Devin along a little. He's not overly comfortable with this. But you work in the oil patch normally?
Yeah.
And ladies, he does have a very nice vehicle behind that camera. How much you pay for that? No, I'm just kidding. It is pimped out. It's nice.
Too much.
But you're like your dad. You can pretty much fix anything. You've been hunting since birth. And so who taught you how to guide moose, your dad or Clay, or both?
Moose would have been my dad.
Yeah.
I've been moose hunting since I was, 10?
Yeah. How many moose hunts have you been on at the ripe old age of 21?
I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah. You think 30, 50?
Probably around 30.
Yeah.
At least.
And then how many, just so people understand, how many animal kills have you been on? Hunt your own or guided or guiding?
We're probably sitting at close to 75, 100.
Yeah. At 21. So Patrick asked immediately, because you're so young, does he have much field craft? And I'm like, a lot. And he's like, well, Aaron, he's 21. And I'm like, I bet he's been on 150 kills. I was like, he's been on a bunch. And I was like, it's different up here, you know. And it's like backpack hunts, and you killed two goats with your two of your brothers, right?
Yeah, my one brother shot one a couple of years ago, and then a buddy of ours that was up there also shot one on the.
So is anybody legal to drink when that happened?
The buddy that came up there.
And you guys got pinned down overnight,
drink at
right?
19 in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, so none of you were 21 yet, were you?
No.
Yeah. So you guys backpacked in and killed 2 goats and got stuck out overnight?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, most Americans are playing Nintendo. I don't think they have Nintendo anymore. So what else? Do you just guide for Jeff, or do you help out up in Nahanni too?
Yeah, I haven't went to Nahanni the last 2 years. The real job's kind of been hard to get away for 2.5 months, but
yeah,
help Jeff out a couple hunts a year. And
how'd you get wrangled into going with us?
Well, I'm pretty sure Jeff just kind of was, yeah, you're going to Darren and them. And then he mentioned like a month or two later, On the adventure we were going to go on the
After you'd taken the time off.
yeah.
That's Jeff for you, though. He's a weasel like that. He'll sneak stuff in on you, and you're not paying attention.
I didn't mind it. I thought it'd be something different.
Our original plan was to float the a river up here that nobody had floated yet, and we went and looked up at it the first day, I guess.
Yeah.
And it looked floatable.
Scouted it.
Yeah, yep, and got on some moose. Got lost. Should I bring that up?
Yeah, sure.
That's
Got
part of
lost.
moose hunting, I think.
Got lost twice, actually.
Lost is a strong word.
No, we didn't get lost, but the guy that was with us, which wasn't either of these two, its compass was by a magnet, and he kept walking away from the truck, which was comical. It was snowing hard, and we were in thick
We lost our bearings a little.
brush.
Or
Yeah.
sort.
We got back to the truck. It's just, it took a minute. And then you killed your bull on the second day?
No.
Third day.
Thursday.
Would have been day 4, right?
Man, I'm the wrong guy to ask. Well, we got
day
piss
4.
pounded with weather. I know that, and we had gotten on. We'd gotten on the bull the day before.
Yeah.
And a cow.
I mean, for people that are watching, by the way, we got this fire going in this 50-gallon drum. We have water boiling. It took us a while to redneck a setup to boil these skulls on these bulls that Aaron and I shot so we can bring them back to the States. And we're both too resourceful and frugal to drop them off at a taxidermist.
We're both cheap bastards.
So anyway, good thing we got Devin here. He's quite resourceful too. So we have a little fire going here, and we've got a 50-gallon barrel we cut in half and filled with
You
water.
can
and boil
see
on
when
these
there's
skulls.
a problem, Devin immediately starts looking around shit to fix it. It's something to crack
Duct
or rig it
tape.
up.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we came out. I've never moose hunted before, so it was pretty cool to experience it for the first time. And the first day we got out here, it was so cold, and there was snow coming down everywhere, and we just kind of drove out, cut fresh tracks, and then wandered around chasing tracks all day and calling, but no responses. The next day we went out and hiked a lot, but didn't really see anything. And on the third day we hiked out, and well, actually the second day we did. That's when the moose. We got back in there about 2 miles, and we heard a moose grunt. That was the first time I had heard a moose call.
Yep.
And our guide Aaron called a few times, and then that prompted a bull to call back and got me so excited. And I'm like, oh, there are moose. I mean, I knew there were tracks and everything, but it was just cool to hear them. It's a rut, so they should be calling. And then Aaron and I got in pretty close, and we kept calling that moose. And
Probably 50 yards or so. It was 50 yards here, might as well be 5,000 in Colorado. You couldn't see 20, but he was probably 50. And what was cool is I've hunted moose, not hunted, but I've been on a bunch of moose hunts, but I haven't heard, you don't hear long calls very often. Or I haven't.
No, not too often.
And that cow cranked her up. At first we weren't sure exactly what was going on, but then that cow just let out. There was noises they were making that I hadn't really heard before. And I looked at Brian, I'm like, dude, that's a long call. I was like, that's cool.
Aaron turned to me, he's like, she sounds like, that moose sounds like it's dying. And it was doing some when you...
She did that, and I was like,
Mm-hmm. And it
dude,
was
that's
really
a long call.
and it really cut in and out a lot, like really whiny. It's
they
like,
make some weird noises sometimes.
Pretty nasally. And that went on for 15 minutes, bro.
yeah, and so at first I didn't understand. I was like, oh, the moose is close. Oh, the moose is far. Oh, the moose is close. Oh, it's gone far away again. It was 2 different moose, at least, maybe more.
Yeah.
And Aaron and I were on an old skid road that's completely grown over. And I don't know when it was logged last, but it's pretty thick in there. And Well,
I thought it was going to come on the road, and I was going to kill it at 10 yards because it was coming.
That's what got me so excited is I'm over Aaron's shoulder with the camera, and I'm like, this is like TV. I mean, we're doing primos here, and there's going to be a moose that just comes right in front of us. I'm thinking moose hunting is too easy. And, yeah, we're sitting there, and I hear the cool part was I would never have guessed it, but there's some kind of swamp down there in this, and you can't see more than 3 feet in front of you, so I wouldn't know there's a swamp down there. But then you hear whoosh, 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 and this moose is crossing some kind of swamp in the trees there, and you're like, and that's when it was like, oh, it's coming. It's like coming because you can hear it just crushing the swamp, and then as it comes across, it sounds like it crossed and started rubbing.
Yeah,
and
it's raking.
You could hear it rubbing and raking for sure, but I couldn't tell. It sounded like it was 50 yards, like Aaron said.
Close.
And we waited for quite a while, but he just kind of stayed there and rubbed.
Yeah.
Never got him to come out.
No, he didn't. And then we messed around there for a little bit and basically got out, and we had hiked in that day, and that was probably closer to I think that's probably a 4-mile day, a 5-mile day, walking around in mud and it sucked.
Rained and it was cold.
And
it seems like the temperature here is right at like 31 or 32 degrees. It might drop to 28 just briefly, just enough to get really cold, and then it goes right back to the sleet. It couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or snow, and that in between temperature is like the worst.
It's not for me.
There's your Canadian. Yeah. It just slips in and like
you got to just give her all the way.
Yeah. So yeah, but Aaron, so I want to get to the part where the Grizzly shows up.
Okay, I'll skip ahead to that. So we go out again to where
the next day, right?
What's that?
It was the next day.
Next day, we go out to where Ryan Callahan shot his moose last year, and we went down. It's kind of hard to explain, but they're spurs and draws. They're little spurs that we could kind of follow down, or you call it a ridge, I guess. Anyway, we went down one and came back. Had a bull come in. It was a little bull, just like a dinner plate bull, and I think well, you could edit this off, but a common Canadian term is f***ed off. So if I was Canadian, I'd say he f***ed off across the river. Devin, did I say that right?
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he did that, and then we hiked out, and we hiked in another spot, and we're I'm semi-deaf. Brian, your hearing's pretty good, I would say. Your hearing's pretty good, but I'm deafer than I can't hear thunder. And Aaron Evans, Aaron Evans, he's deafer than Adorna. He needs hearing aids. And we're sitting on this ridge line, and Aaron's calling, and I can hear something coming in. But I didn't want to have another false alarm, and I'm like looking at these guys. They didn't say anything. I hear it again. I look again, and I'm like, "Hey, there's something right there." And Aaron Evans goes, "You mean on the ridge?" And I'm like, "Right there, right there." And because I didn't want to screw this up, because we'll get the bullshit. I'm cussing a little too much. Katie's gonna have to. We get to BS, and maybe we talk a little loud. So Aaron Evans cow calls a couple times, and a grizzly comes out, and immediately I'm like, I think I was telling you, get the camera. I'm like, get the camera. And then I looked, and I dropped another F-bomb. There's going to be some editing. I'm like, it's going to be effing close. Get ready. And
well, we had been cow calling, and it just started coming in.
It came in for dinner. And it was funny because, Brian, you got it coming.
I glimpsed it just for a second, and I was like, I think I saw a bear. And so I'm holding the camera there, and there's this big, like, stump thing kind of blocking a hillside, basically.
Is where I thought it would come up. I just thought it would probably stop there because I was like 21,
thought it'd, like, peek
yards.
up and investigate or something.
Yeah.
That's not what happened.
No, it was. So if you can imagine, Aaron Evans is to the left, and he has the gun probably 2 yards left of you, 3. 5?
Yep, 2 yards.
And then Brian is behind the only tree around. Brian's behind that so he can get good videos leaning up against it, also to hide, which was smarter than me. I did lean towards the video or the tree later in the video, and then I'm standing to the right of Brian with my camera, and it comes up by the log, and it kind of pokes its head around. And then Aaron Evans, I don't know what he said. Something.
He's like,
whatever.
hey, mamacita.
Yeah, and he starts
going,
something. hey, which I'm not a grizzly bear expert, but from what I understand, you're not supposed to sound like a dog barking, but it comes. It's running right at him.
It charged like.
Easy, mamacita. Hey.
As soon as it heard the voice and the yelling, it went from just kind of peeking over to full on charging in, and it wasn't slowing down.
And I was still good at that point. I was just standing out in the open taking photos. You can hear it on the video. Snap, and he fires off around at its feet. And
Aaron Evans shot.
Aaron Evans shot. Yep. And
shot at its feet.
And it stops for a second, and then I was like, I'm good. And then it kind of, and he yells at it again, and it was like, oh, I run to the sound of gunfire. You didn't know that? And just boom, hits it again. And at that point, I was like starting to lean towards the tree, and it was going for Evan. And then finally, or Aaron Evans,
it locked eyes. Like it looked at Evan like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
it had a really predatory.
Which I was good with that. Totally fine. I thought, well, me and Brian will just run like hell. No,
I wasn't sure how I felt about the entire situation, and not having a firearm myself, I didn't. It's much like riding on the back of a motorcycle while someone else is driving.
Yeah, scary.
I prefer to be the driver with someone on the back rather than
I can confirm that because when I drive his truck, he yells at me the entire time.
So here you are, like with a grizzly bear at 12, 13 yards, and you're relying on someone you don't really know
with a shitty gun
to hold their mud and and be able to under pressure shoot. And it's a scary thing because you fire a warning shot, and based on that bear and it's coming, you fire a warning shot at its feet at about 12, 15 yards. That thing kept coming even though the shot goes off, and the bear just takes he closes another 5 yards.
It got him excited more than anything. He was like, oh, it's gonna be fun today. He didn't slow down. It was pretty cool.
I'm glad it was good at stop, but thinking back, that shot didn't even phase it. If it kept coming, there's no way you could reload in time to shoot it again. And that's a little scary.
You held your together, though. You had the camera on it the whole time. You didn't.
Yeah, I didn't actually expect the gun. I did expect the gun, but I'm sitting there messing with it, and he shoots the gun, and the camera bobs a little because the gunshot was a surprise for me. And so I that's disappointing because I wanted to. I can't tell what I was looking through By the way, folks, like in Jurassic Park when he's driving and the T-Rex is behind him and he looks through the mirror and he's like, these objects are larger than they appear, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's like when you're looking through a camera.
You thought it was like 40 yards away, didn't you?
I thought he was still 35, 40 yards away. Through the camera, he looks far away. And I'm like locked in because the glare from the sun, I can't look at the screen, and I'm watching the whole thing through a camera, not with my naked eye. Well, when it turns and runs and I pull the camera down and I look, I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing was like 12 yards. It was already on top of us. And not that it would have made a lot of difference. You had to get it on film, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's just a story without the film.
Yeah.
Oh, it was when this first happened and the bear popped out. When I told you to grab your camera, you immediately were like, I don't know how I feel about this.
I'm behind the tree and I'm like, I know I saw a glimpse of a bear. And so I'm like, I think I saw it. So I'm filming where I think it's going to come out. And Aaron goes, oh, dude, it's going to be effing close. It's going to be effing close. And I'm looking at the tree and I'm looking at where it probably will come out. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's close. And I'm wondering, should we start yelling now? Should you throw rock? Is it really coming, or what's it doing?
I think I called you a pussy.
And I said,
in the middle of all that.
And I go, I told Aaron, Aaron, I'm not sure how I feel about all this. And Aaron goes, you pussy. And I was like, no, I'm just like, again, not the guy with the gun.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there waiting for a bear to pop its head out. And then when it pops its head out and you yell at it, and the first thing it does is come at you like a linebacker. It's like
it took a step back and then just boom. Hit it. And you'll see all this on video. Brian got it all on video.
When it does stop after the gunshot, it kind of sits there for a sec, and he yells at it, and it rocks back just for a sec and kind of shivers. And then it's like, oh no, and it takes like two more steps, and I'm like, I truly expected the gun to go off between its eyes.
Oh, believe me, I was curious why he wasn't shooting again, because I'm thinking, well, at that distance, 12 yards is a second, and I'm still standing out like a flipping idiot in the wide open, going ching ching, like, are you going to shoot this motherfucker or what? Like, hey man, it's getting close. You're gonna have to edit this, but that's what I was thinking. And then he's like, I only got two more, and then Aaron says something later like, good thing I loaded another round. I'm thinking, why I got to stop cussing, but I was thinking, why wouldn't you load another round? That's expected. That's like saying, I'm sure glad I wiped. Well, yeah, I'm glad you loaded another round too. But
it was a little nerve-wracking when it comes like those two more steps and then stops. But the whole time I'm behind the tree and I am not moving. Like I am a statue behind that tree, and I'm wondering if that bear gets on Aaron, the guy, Garen Evans. I'm like, he's like 6 feet from me. That bear takes him down. I mean, how do you sneak away?
Or how do you sneak in and grab the gun? Hold on, you guys finish this. I'm going to go ahead and just grab this gun.
Getting your hands on the gun is probably slim to zero. And I'm thinking, what's the next move here? I'm a few steps ahead. Aaron, in the meantime, is diving behind me, behind the trees, edging his way over.
Pushed you yet?
No, yeah.
No, I mean, when it got that close, all I was thinking was trying to run it through my head, I just thought if I get behind the tree, my bow was right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, worst case scenario, I guess if it's eating Aaron, I'll wing an arrow at it. But that's also, you got to keep shit together to do that. I wasn't really shaking, but it's still trying to load an arrow that fast and get it, Well,
and you don't want to draw attention. Like, you'd think if he got on Aaron, he'd be so consumed with Aaron. But I've heard that story. Who was telling us a story the other day?
Evans, he said that there's 3 guys, all of them eating, all their guns leaning up against a tree. All of them were dead. So
there was that other guy Dallas. Dallas was talking about one of his buddies, a guide guy. The guy got attacked by a grizzly, and the client was behind him, 100 yards roughly.
Yeah. And
when he saw it, he just started screaming, ah. So the bear gets off the guide and runs and mauls him. Now,
I'm really fast.
Would you have yelled, Devin, if you were the client?
Probably. But
Yeah?
I probably would have been yelling and running the other way. Somewhere away from there.
But the bear,
Luckily
basically,
for
the
me-
story was he mauled both people.
But I'm faster.
There's no need for that.
I'm
One
faster
person
than-
getting mauled is good enough.
Yeah.
I'm faster than both of you, so I was golden.
Speak of the devil.
Yeah. And we're going to pause this. 'Cause
Well,
That's a deep subject, man.
Wet and cold,
see anything?
but it was all worth it.
No way.
17 yards.
17 yards? Damn! Yeah!
No way.
No
With
shit.
a bow.
Thanks.
Congrats.
So basically, we were outside a minute ago, and now we are back in the house because we were interrupted during the podcast with the news of a grizzly bear shot with a bow.
yeah, Clay got a grizzly, which is cool. Off the river. Sounded like they spotted it and made an insane stalk, and it stood up 17 yards in front of Clay, and he shot it. And then I'm not sure what happened after that, but it didn't sound overly appealing. I think the You get to the end of the story, and it died 6 yards from him.
Yeah.
Just shy of a first down away from him. So, yeah, Clay was happy. He's a super good dude. He makes that holographic. He's part of the owner of that company. Makes like a, I guess, holographic site, I guess.
Yeah, something like
that. Big Texan. He's got to be 6'3", 240, don't you think? He's a big one. So, anyway, yeah, I think we were leaving off on where we got charged.
Yep.
Not an attack. We were just discussing this. If no bite marks or, any kind of a tackling or mauling happened, it was a charge. You can't call a charge an attack because that's false advertising. I did think about kicking Brian in front of the bear, but then we wouldn't have had the video, so it wouldn't have mattered, so I didn't. Yeah. But, I had fun with that. That was fun. It was cool. Good photos. And the next day, Brian, the night before, you said, I don't know if elk are like moose, but there's a hot cow in there in a bowl. Do you want to go back in there? And I was like, man, that was the most sign we'd seen where we got on that initial moose encounter, and then we had the grizzly encounter, and so we.
Yeah, and the grizzly and the moose experiences were way far apart, like hour or 2 hours away. So it was like, I was thinking, why not go back to where we last had a hot cow and moose going off?
Yeah, and tons of sign everywhere.
And I talked to Devin, and you were, I don't know, what did I talk to you after or before? I can't remember, but you were saying a lot of times what you'll do is you'll go out and you'll call to moose, in a spot.
I'll go and call in the evenings. I'll call 3-4 hours right till dark, and then go back in the morning, and it's 7 out of 10 times there's a bull there usually.
It is crazy to think that way, and so hearing that, it's like, well, we know that there was moose in there, almost called it in. It was probably 50 to 70 yards away in the thicket, and I thought for sure we were going to film Aaron shooting that with his bow, just popping right out in the opening. Sounded super aggressive. He grunted so much, and he didn't come through, and so we go off someplace else, hunt, get out there, and the grizzly charges us. And that night, yeah, like Aaron said, I'm thinking, let's go back to where it's the only, basically,
best by far. We saw one little chicken-headed guy in.
Yep.
Yeah. And
we saw some moose tracks in snow. Yeah. Outside of that, we really hadn't seen a lot of moose action. So I was like, man,
I ran over here, and I was thinking we had 2 quads and a side-by-side. Yeah. So I was going to kind of weasel my way into not being a wiener, but like, hey, and think right when I asked, I said, Aaron, what do you think about going back to where we were? And before I get it out, he's like, yeah, we take the quads. We'll just drive in, because it was probably 4 miles or 3. I don't know. It's a long ways back.
We walked it the first time, and it was
walked.
It was a 4-mile round trip, easy.
Yeah, plus we went back that other spot. But
yep.
Yeah, so the next morning we had Aaron Evans, Brian rode dirty on the back of his. And Aaron thought, he's like, you guys can both ride on the back of the quad. And I'm like, we're going to look like Dumb and Dumber and dumb I'm like, no, I'll take Devin's. So I was like, Devin, can I take your quad? And I haven't ridden a quad since as a kid, so you gave me the brief overview in the morning. You're like, this is up, this is down, this is reverse. Give her. I'm like, all right. And
yep,
we drove, I don't know what that is, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Yeah, probably about 20 or so back to there.
We parked and walked over to where we
literally we rode the quads in the dark, which was good because a lot of the moose activity, the calling and stuff we'd been experiencing was right at first light.
Yeah.
And the longer it went into the afternoon, it seemed like they were bedding down or just shutting up. And so it took us so long to walk in the first time, a few miles, that by the time we got there, it was well past morning light.
Well, and I guess it's not like life or death, but it is like, I would say 6 inches to less water in mud the entire way. It's just pit the whole way back. not that that's that big of a deal, but you can't move as fast, and sounds like a herd of elephants walking through a pool. In the way that Aaron Evans walks, even for me, I mean, he doesn't wait for anyone. It's kind of a pain in the ass, really, because you're trying to keep up.
Well, you get mud, up through the middle of your gaiters if you got those on. If you don't,
well, my
you're
bow
hosed.
looks like it got hit with the mud from splashing, trying to haul ass.
It's a lot of mud and wet.
Yeah,
but it was cool because we rode in, hopped off the quads, and we walked, I don't know, a couple hundred yards.
Yeah, you know what I did when I paced it back
I
came back and paced it was 410.
So 400 yards from the quads, and then we stopped, and then we called from the exact same spot we called last time and got a response.
We effed up though, because we didn't. I mean, I shouldn't say effed up because who would have known? Called, and immediately it grunted, and I'm like, "That's in that opening." And then I looked up, and the moose is looking at us.
Yeah.
Like
So to set the stage for people who are listening, it's an old, logging type road, skid road, back in thick country. It's not like we're going up and down elevation. It's relatively flat. It's just thick. And we'd ride the quads out there on those roads. And when you get off the quad, I mean, there was a long kind of skid road. We were on a cross section is where we stopped to call from. And on that little section there, you could see 250 yards.
There was a
200?
cut block where he was standing in, and in that cut block was the landing.
Yeah.
And he was standing in what I would call the landing. And he was standing in the landing, and it was,
And you knew because the last time we were there, we were standing
in the cut block.
So we're like, when he called, Aaron's like, you knew exactly. You were like, oh my God, dude, he's right there. We knew where he was, even though.
Well, and I thought we would sneak down. Now, we didn't know at the time the moose was looking at us when it called back. So, I like my plan of attack is attack. So I literally was like, all right, let's go. And Brian and I went down, and I thought we would just sneak around and shoot it. Well, there's a bit of a controversy whether the moose was looking at us and had us pinned or Aaron Evans, but I didn't see it look at us. It was looking at the caller because we three dumb standing there calling, and I'm sure it was looking right at us. So we circled around, and you and I stopped really at the point of no return, and we got right behind a fir tree, and you had a little opening where we could watch it, and I think if Aaron would have raked, it probably would have come in, or if it had them paddles.
Yeah, the paddles really help a lot.
You've had good luck with them paddles.
Fantastic luck.
Yeah. Aaron used a cow decoy. He just stared at it. Didn't even budge.
But you get them paddles up in your arms, and you'll kind of waddle them around your head, and they'll see the flash of those, and it's worked great for you.
Yeah.
Brought my
and
boy.
it was low light, so it seemed like, he didn't have the best visibility either, but he could see something was there.
Yeah.
But when the calls first went off, he went, bleh, bleh, bleh.
Yeah.
He grunted right off, and as soon as, because we were skirting right on the road, and there was a lot of brush hiding our approach. Aaron moved to the left, Aaron Evans, and moved to the left to lean out to look down the road. And when he leaned out, he pulled his binos up. He goes, "It's looking right at us." But it was only looking at Aaron because there was no way you could see.
Yeah,
see
we
us.
still didn't.
But he was looking at our group, you know. And from that point, once he pinned that movement, he quit talking and he just stood there. And then we inched forward. We're probably 80 yards in front of Aaron.
Yeah, we got to 160, and it's funny how everything's in slow motion, but really fast. And anyone who's ever been in that situation, you're trying to make smart decisions, and you're trying not to do anything stupid or let adrenaline. And for whatever reason, I did not have the urge to kill anything that day overly. I don't know why, but I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, that is a big flipping moose. That is way bigger than, because we didn't see it at first.
Right.
And I think Aaron said 32.
Yeah, he said 30.
30. And I got up to it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like,
It's not 30.
Should I tell Brian? Because you couldn't see it. You could see it through the camera.
I can see the paddles. Dude, I don't know what I'm looking at. This is like my first moose I've ever seen in the wild with a weapon in hand.
I'm like leaning out, and I'm like 20, 70, 1. Huh. We need to kill that. And it was Brian's birthday, and you had said you didn't mind. I didn't mind shooting with a gun either, but you didn't mind shooting one with a gun. It's your first moose and everything else. So you're like, I wouldn't. I'll kill it. And I was like, go ahead.
Well, and one thing to consider, folks, too, is it's not like you're in the land of
we've seen 75 newfies just piss pounding the road, blasting the shit. I mean, you can dive in on that.
There are some hunts where you get a stock every morning, afternoon, and evening. And there's some hunts where you get one stock in 10 days.
I have one? Yeah.
And so this is that kind of hunt. So it's like.
Yeah, because we were already 6 days into it. 5?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 5.
5. Yeah. It's day 5. And so I'm sitting there wondering, okay, we talked about it, and I was really hoping it would walk in because.
Yeah, we were ready. It was perfect. I had that holy shit.
Aaron would have drilled him. And we just needed him to come a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And one thing I wondered, Devin, in hindsight, would that moose, if you drop back as the caller into the trees, would he pull him forward?
It all depends. Sometimes lots of times they come straight at you once you're calling, or they try to come downwind of you if you can. But yeah, no.
The paddles usually work better for you than anything, bringing them that last little bit, don't they?
Yeah, the paddle, because they see that flash.
Yeah.
And it looks just like moose horns.
And what it is it's actually a boat paddle, because Clay and I built some up in the. Yeah. It's just 2 boat paddles back to back, duct taped. And when you say flash the paddle, it looks like the front end of a moose or whatever.
It reminds me of like a kayak paddle.
Yep.
Basically.
That's all it is. It's really a wood kayak paddle. Yeah.
And so anyway, we
sat there. Aaron's like, dude, if he doesn't come, what do you want to do? And I'm like, we need to shoot him.
At which I was happy to hear. And I didn't want to say it's big, and then you get like, oh my God, I need to shoot now, which I contemplated for quite some time, saying, I mean, it's not big like an NWT 70-inch moose, but it's real damn big for this area. I mean, it's a good moose for this area.
Great moose, yeah.
And the other thing, too, is you already had the camera set up, so honestly, so I couldn't screw it up.
I was thinking all I got to do is hand that to Aaron, and this will actually we'll capture the whole thing on film.
I take my pack and I stick it on the road, and I'm like,
he's kicking it out
right in the middle of the road, and I put my leg back, and you were watching it, and you're like, he didn't move. I'm like, okay, we're almost home free now. Yeah. And you laid in the prone.
Got on your pack.
On the pack, yeah, you laid on the pack, and on your stomach, and he still hadn't moved. No. Now he moved once,
turned his head right one time in the middle of that, and kind of looked behind him.
I didn't get to see that though.
And when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
He's bigger than I realized at that point. Plus, the sun was slowly coming up.
And then I got the binos up after that, and he moved his head again, and I was like, I mean, looking at it, I figured he was mid-40s, roughly, and I was like, yeah, that's not a bad moose, because I've been in here before, and Cal's moose is just a little bit bigger than the ones we shot, and Lander freaked out over Cal's moose, so I knew it was pretty big. But anyway, I was going to just say, hey, because I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, hey,
I remember.
I know you know this, or I think you know this. And I was like, never mind. And you're
all the while, I'm laying over the thing, and I'm getting the crosshairs ready, and I'm like.
Yeah, then I'm like, well, just so you know, I'm like, don't this up, all right?
Right as I'm about to shoot this thing.
I didn't want it to get away, and I didn't want it to go in the swamp.
And then once I saw it up close, I was thrilled. Yeah. I was happy at that point just to have a moose, get all the meat, because, you hear about moose meat being top, one of the top game meats in the world. And
one of the coolest parts was when we were cleaning it, it had a gouge where it went in maybe 6 inches from another bull. Its fronts dug into it, and it was pussy. And my dumbass, which thought I was doing the right thing, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to cut a circle around this and get the infected meat out. And I have a strong stomach. I would say pus pumped out of that. What do you think, half gallon? Gallon?
Gallon.
Yeah. Oh.
A gallon.
And I was doing that. I couldn't.
It was a sickening smell, man. And I couldn't believe how much pus was in there.
Well, then Aaron's like, if you're going to puke, do it away from me. And that pussy pukes like 5 minutes later right by us all over the place. And I was like, thanks. I'm supposed to say what I mean. That wiener pukes right by us. And I was close. I sounded like kind of a Chewbacca Yoda mixture.
I got a little of that on camera.
You know what? I got some that up.
I got a strong ass stomach too.
I know. I do too, but not that
Dang. That smells like death. Are you going to throw up on camera, Aaron?
It'll be the first time if I do, not the camera. Usually I don't puke, but
want to grab that loose moss on here.
that's pushing her.
Where's the water?
If you got to puke, go do it somewhere else.
It was bad, but
But man, he's such a big animal. I've never been on top of, on a moose before. In like
two four-wheelers.
There's a lot of moose there.
Oh man, I can't believe how big those animals are, and it's so cool just to put your hands on one like that, and then you're breaking it apart and you're seeing it, and the height of the legs and the shoulder, the size of the hooves, and you got that hump across the back. One thing I was surprised about was the tenderloins were giant, like when you compare those to an elk or something. But I was surprised how small the back straps were on a moose.
Yeah, elk definitely got a lot more backstrap. I think elk might be a bit longer than a moose, so moose are a lot taller.
It was cool though, like to see that they have that big hump though on their spine that goes back down, and
yeah,
it's a cool looking animal.
Both of ours had big bells on them too, which was cool.
Yep, the little dingle thing hanging off their neck, and Aaron's
BC dingleberry.
Aaron's moose has a real thick one. Mine had a real skinny, long one, but I hear that they freeze off in the winter.
Freeze off, or they'll get ripped off when they're fighting, or
yeah.
Oh,
it was cool. And the moose I shot was black, like the hide was really black.
Yeah.
And Aaron's moose was really brown.
Mine was aging. It had a lot of gray.
But you said they get that way regardless of age.
Yeah, I've seen 2-year-olds that are gray too, and
it looked like a silverback gorilla.
So that was really nice because it was a sigh of relief, and we were thinking, okay, we've got a moose. We both wanted to split the meat if we only got one. And once we got that done, it was an easy pack out since we drove the 4-wheeler right to it, which was nice.
Pack. It was awesome. Considering the way mine turned out.
Considering the way it could be when you're hunting moose, which we had hiked in miles to places earlier, and if we had shot a moose there, we'd have had our work cut out for us. So to shoot one right off of a skid road was like, woohoo, this is like a victory here. And
on your birthday.
On my birthday. We brought him back, carved him up, threw him in the freezer. We brought that chest freezer in the back of the covered trailer, the 16-foot
Which, by the way, one giant chest freezer is just not enough for 2 moose. Because Lander won't know this right now, but I stole his deep freezer from downstairs of the shack here. I'm not sure how I'm going to approach it. I think what I'm going to do when we get to Alberta, I'm back, Lander, what's a freezer cost up here? Like a deep freezer, like a 6-foot by 3-foot. And he's going to be like, probably a couple $100, and I'm just going to hand him $200 and walk away and see what he says, and then be like, hey, I stole one of your deep freezers. I borrowed. I could bring it back, but I probably won't.
But, yeah, you're right. I brought one from home, and
I thought surely that was plenty of room.
Well, if we deboned my moose, then I think you could fit 2 deboned moose in there.
Yeah, it'd be close for sure.
It would be. You'd probably have some meat in a
cooler
next to it. But this way, we have 2 chest freezers.
Yeah.
And when we go to Alberta, we'll have a little extra space
Least
for some mule
Got to
deer.
get my elk in Montana.
And Aaron's elk in Montana. Yeah.
But yeah, so the next day, we went with you, right?
Yeah, it was the next day. Yeah,
And it was freaking horrible.
rain and snow.
Rain and snow. Yeah, sleet and hot
I did
winds.
not bring quite the right setup.
Oh, you were shaking like a cat in razor blades. It was bad.
I was normally I don't get as cold as you do.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
That day was one of the only days I've seen you colder than me.
I did not like that day because so for people listening, we've been testing out all the different gear we have, and this is a little tangent, but I've got that quiet waterproof rain gear that Sitka makes that I've used on MPOW, and I used here a bunch and in some heavy rains. And I've just noticed it seems like once I'm in it if it's cold, it wicks some water in. You had some similar stuff.
Yeah, when you're in the real heavy, wet snow and it's sticking to it bad, and
you
got snow
it
stuck
collects
to you.
water on the outside, and then I think what it does is in the zipper and stuff. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it eventually pushes.
Eventually, it pushes through, and you get a little bit damp under there, which wasn't a big deal earlier in the week because I had some nice insulating layers underneath. They got a little damp. I still was plenty warm. But on this particular day, I just had some thin layers underneath because we'd been hiking our nuts off for 5 days with Aaron.
Yeah.
So then we go out with Devin, and Devin's like, I'm a lazy sucker. So, so we walked out a little ways, not far, and then we stood still a lot. And so I was prepared for an active day, and we were kind of standing still a lot. So, but after using the different rain gear, that quiet rain gear, I really love it because it is quiet and you're moving through the brush and everything. But if I had to rely on a piece of gear for straight up, it's life or death, or you have to stay dry, or it's really wet, it's more than just snow, I'm going for the Stormfront.
Yeah.
Which is what Aaron wore the whole time, virtually, whenever there was rain.
I wore the cold front. Sorry, potty break. You know how it is, folks. I wore the cold front when I shot my moose just because it's cold. But I don't look at rain gear the same way as most or as some anyway. And you and I talked about it when you were talking about what to wear, and I'm like, man, when I put rain gear on, noise is not. It's the last thing on my mind. For me, it's a survival / stay warm, stay dry type of a thing. And, usually when it's raining that hard, you can get away with more noise anyway. This is mountain hunting, not tree stand hunting, obviously. So yeah, and that day I look like that fat kid on Christmas Story that falls down, Ralphie. I look like, have you ever seen that? You're young, Devin.
Probably, I don't think so, no.
The F -- word. But I look like that little kid that fell down because I had, as much clothes as I could fit on. But then we went down the one road, we came back, we went to the lake, and it rained.
It was a cold day.
At 33 to 34 degrees, I guess.
Yeah, just above freezing.
The entire day, and I have my bow, and the entire day I'm thinking, we need to shoot something soon. This is starting to wear on me. Not complaining at all, and we've been hunting a lot, but it does start to grind on you, especially if I have that temperature of rain is bone chilling cold because it just, it's the hypothermic kind of temperature, that 34 to 42 degrees or whatever. And so we came back.
And it would even dip below freezing for an hour or two, 28 degrees, 30, and then it would go back up to 32. And that's the thing, is to be a little damp all the time and have it be at those temperatures. It does just, and I know I rode the quad a lot, and there was just snow, wet snow just falling on my pant. And I noticed sitting down, I got wet through the zipper where the quad, where we were going through tight brush, where normally I'm standing and walking, in that quiet rain gear, and it's never been a problem when I'm standing up. But I think just, all that moisture finds a way in on that outside. And Aaron's like, yeah, that's why I like the loud, smooth, other rain gear. So
there's a time and a place for both. It's just a time and place for the quieter. It's not a place that I dip into very often. But
I loved it on POW because it's 60 degrees or 70. And if you get a little damp, it's fine because you're still pretty dang warm.
Yeah.
And it's like when I pull off that gear, I can't tell am I wet from sweat or am I wet from the outside? And because it's so minimal. But I after going back and forth from the storm front to is it the thundercloud, I think?
Thunderhead,
I
think that's what it's called.
You got that thundercloud from me. I kept calling it the thundercloud. Yeah.
Well, it was back and forth, and I use it. Well, when I come home on that storm front, I was bone dry multiple times after being in it all day, and I even jumped we crossed the river for Aaron's moose, and I didn't have gaiters on or anything, and I just cinched the bottom of that rain gear down, and then I did, hot potato run across the water, which
I wish I would have had my camera out for some of this, but it was raining so freaking hard. Trophy hunt photos aren't the end of the world, but I was worried about frying the camera before we took pictures of the bull with all of us. And when I crossed that river, I got across good, but I had gaiters on. And then I didn't know you didn't have them on. And then when you came across, I'm like, I don't think he has gaiters on. This is going to suck for him.
But I managed to, basically the water was above my boot.
Yeah.
I got in there and I was like, crap. And I started making my way across. It got deeper and deeper. And I was like, and then you panic because it got real deep, almost to the knees. Yeah. And I'm like running through and I got to the other side. And amazingly, I was, still dry. I just had a little tiny bit of moisture around my top of my ankle. And I was like, hey, not bad.
Pretty good.
And I don't think the other rain gear would have done performed anywhere near that well. So, anyway, that's the future story.
Yeah. The thing was, as though every night we just had the fires in the cabins cranking to dry all our crap out, from cameras to clothing to everything else. So that night we decided to float the river.
Yeah.
Or make an attempt. The weather forecast looked like, go ahead.
After we hunted by that lake and stuff, when we popped out of there, I remember, so we were sitting there going, okay, we could keep driving around and finding different spots, or we could just have this adventure on the river.
Get all our stuff dried out and packed and ready to go for the morning and go for an adventure on the river.
And that honestly was not that appealing to any of us.
Well, and I was actually excited about it at first because the weather looked like one bad day, a good day, and kind of a half a day or whatever, which that was not the case. It was horrible every day, which we didn't know at the time. But either way, we got it all loaded up and the teepee and the boats are ready and leave from camp, and I'm raining like pitchforks and black cats, like it's raining. And then we get up high in altitude and we're looking at the thermometer just thinking just another couple degrees and it'll be snow. Never did that. It was 1-2 degrees Celsius. And Devin pulls up. He's like, you mind if I call from here? I'm like, man, whatever it takes to not float this river, I'm all for it.
I'm in the other truck with Ben Jackson, and I'm like looking out the window, and oh, Ben, this looks miserable.
I'll set the stage a little better. It's probably, 6 inches of snow in there?
Yeah, 6, 8 probably.
Yep, 6 to 8 of heavy snow. It's sleeting and raining and windy. Yeah, pretty. I'd say 20-mile-an-hour gusts maybe.
Yeah.
Enough to make you freeze even more. And so I've got everything on that I can fit on my body, and I got hot hands. And for whatever reason, we left our binos here. We were like, we're going to float the river. We're not going to be able to see much. And I've got a rangefinder. And Devin's got binoculars. And Ben had a spotter. And so we stop. And I'm walking down the road looking at the river, and I look back at you when you climbed up higher. You're like, I'm going to get higher and get a better vantage point. And you were like, and I'm like,
Making
is
little
that some kind of a
charades
deal? He doesn't have his paddles, or is he telling me there's a moose? And I didn't really pay attention for a second. I looked back down by the river, and I looked back, and so I walked up to you, and you're like, there's a bull over there, a cow, or a bull and a cow.
I have a question, Devin. Did you see tracks on the road when you got out right there?
No, that's just where I always call from.
You just like to call from there?
Yeah, because you can kind of see both sides down in there, and you can, if you get up a bit higher, you can really see both sides. You can see all that back real good too.
So you like to call and see, what might come.
Yeah, last year I called a bull in right from there. It came right from the river all the way up.
How long did that take?
Oh, I was just about ready to give up. I probably called for 2 to 3 hours.
Dang, man, moose are different.
Yeah.
Like, they come, but at least the moose I've seen, it's like, yeah, okay. It's like they're not in a huge rush.
Yeah, it was a lot earlier on, too. And yeah,
in the season.
Yeah, he was coming. I don't know if he was a ways away and heard me or if he was just in the bottom thinking whether or not he wanted to come in. But yeah, I was just walking down and then I seen paddles sticking out from the bottom, so I kept calling, and yeah, he came right into
That's cool.
50, 60 yards.
Yeah. But yeah, the I think, did you tell me it was a cow, or you saw a bull and a cow?
Well, I thought I seen paddles first, and then I just with the lighting and all the rain, I wasn't sure. It looked like almost another one behind it, and
because it's kind of whiting out a little bit over on the other side.
Yeah, probably 1,200 yards away or better.
Yeah, 12, 13.
It's a poke. There's a lot of effing going on. It's effing raining. The moose won't effing come down.
We see a moose.
He's effing stuck in the effing trees. Right in effing rain.
How do we feel about this today's moose versus floating in the river?
Effing rain.
You're doing a great job holding those antlers up.
Thank you. But then I looked, and I think I said that's a bull right there behind that tree, and then
I looked and I thought, oh, there's a cow, but his antlers were there, but I think they had snow on them. Or
I think they're just kind of in behind the branches.
Yeah.
Too, and then we got the spotter on it, and I looked, or whoever looked, but I remember looking through the spotter, and I was like, that's a pretty good bull.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was like, and at me being the aggressive guy, and I'm leaving out the part, I just left the bow at home that day. Like, I'm like, we're running out of time, and I'm running out of patience, and I'm running out of the ambition to get soaking wet every day. Let's just bring the gun. You had a 338 STA.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just bring the gun, Devin, and let's just.
Our Alberta hunt is in a few days.
Yeah.
And that Alberta mule deer hunt is bow dependent. We can't shoot one with a rifle. And we talked about going down the rapids and stuff with Aaron's bow strapped to the boat. And I was like, if that bow goes down.
We had an accident earlier with using my bow as an arresting device. So my backup bow, the cam looks like an L angle. And the quiver snapped off, and
it took a hit.
It's effed up, and so I had the primary.
You're down. You brought 2 bows for this trip.
Yep.
And you're down to 1, and it's like, man, if you screw that bow up, your Alberta hunt's over.
Yeah, it's not like I can get. And I actually, Prime was super cool. I messaged him, and I was like, hey, I fell out of the boat, and I effed up my bow, my backup, and they were like, hey, whatever. It sounded like not a quick process to get it over the border, and I knew that from Kafaru, and so I'm like, man, I was like, I'm not using it as an excuse to grab the gun, but it didn't hurt my feelings to not float the boat with the bow strapped to it down the river. So anyway, we got. I'm thinking immediately, especially with that caliber you had, I'm like, Devin wants to drop at 4. And there's a river below us, and I'm
400 yards.
400 yards, and I remember thinking you could see it from the river, and I don't know if you said you're not going to be able to say anything from below.
Yeah.
But the only reason why I went down there, or I knew that, is where that cabin was.
Yeah.
Out of boredom this spring, I did a loop, and I was like, well, it could be willows too, and there could be brush I'm not seeing, and maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I'm like, man, I think I can get to the river and crank it in that opening. And I told you probably 5 times, I'm like, now I always say this, whether we need to hurry or not, but I'm like, we need to hurry. We need to get down there and shoot that thing before it goes in beds. And then it became if we could even cross the river and if we needed a boat. So team effort, we went down to the river and you grabbed the boat and got it ready. And whatever, while Devin and I were sitting, and that bull went into the wood line, and we probably sat for, an hour?
Yeah, probably an hour.
And I'd had about all I could handle at this point.
Anytime it's cold like this and we got to stop moving for a while and it's rainy. Like Aaron's fine in the snow, but it's rainy. He starts to
I don't like the rain.
He does not like it.
And I'm sitting with a tree. I can't get my hands in my gloves because they're wet. And then I put my hands in my pockets and my hot hands are wet. And it's raining down my neck. And I'm like, yeah, great. My rain gear's waterproof, but I don't ever get cold in my body. I get cold in my feet and my hands. And we're sitting there and Brian's like, there it is. And I looked and I'm like, that's a cow. And you said, I think that's a 2-point. And I looked over and I'm like, if that 2-point gets close, I'll kill it right now. And Devin starts laughing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not kidding. If it crosses that river, it's going to die today.
Yeah, I saw it with my naked eye, the trees, and I'm like, oh, sucker's sneaking down on us. And then when we look close, you threw up binos and stuff. And then I was staring at it, I was like, I don't see much for antlers. And then I thought it was a cow after that. And then you're like, oh, it's just a baby spike. And then I'm thinking, oh, it is so dead. It is so dead. Like, I know Snyder, if that thing comes within range at this point, he's putting that on the ground and he's going to be perfectly happy.
Well, I don't think people, I guess like in Montana, they figured it out. But for me, it's like when we were with you, I was dry, happy. Not a care in the world, super pumped, and I literally had no ambition to. I would have shot that one you shot with a bow.
Yeah,
but I was dry. We hadn't gotten pissed on for 4 days straight. We gotten rained on, but it wasn't totally miserable, and I did not have the wave go over me where nothing on heaven or earth is going to stop me from shooting. I was like, yeah, Brian. Kill it. I was like, that's awesome. It would have taken heaven and earth to stop me from shooting anything in the snow. And you had that shit-eating grin on your face. You were like, and I was like, I'm not kidding, man. It crossed that river. It's going to die.
I leaned over to Devin and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm secretly hoping that spike doesn't come in because it'll be like trying to stop an ocean wave. To keep Aaron from shooting that. And I'm okay with Aaron shooting whatever Aaron wants to shoot, but I would much prefer the big moose to come down the hill.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hopefully the big moose comes in before the little moose. And the little moose looked like he was coming.
Oh, I went over
that
to
cow
shoot
call
it.
off, and yeah, it was.
And he just turned and came like he was coming. I was like, little moose is dead. Poor little.
And I walked down the thing, and I was like, in my mind, I always have the whatever, and I'm like, it crosses the river. I'll kill it because we don't have to cross the river. It's an easy pack out, and we don't have to float the river. And I was also still irritated, which I didn't make a big deal of it. I wanted to run down and just shoot the bull earlier in the day at 450 yards and crank it from the river. And I'm overly impatient. And I wouldn't say I was irritated. I was just like, damn it, now it's in the timber. There's no way we're going to be able to, no one's going to want to cross this river. And then we got and started looking at the river. And
yeah, it wasn't.
Hell, we walked across.
Well,
it.
and we didn't know where the moose was. And we were sitting there on the bank, and you'd been calling for about an hour.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, maybe he's just in the timberline, and he just bedded right where we last saw him. Or maybe he made his way down, circled us, winded us. Who knows? So I went back up the hill to find Ben.
And that's
Jackson.
when you grabbed the boat, too, I guess,
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And Ben was up on top of the hill, and he had the spotter on it still. So I walked all the way back, and I was like, Ben, what's going on? And he said, last I saw that moose, he looked like he just barely went in the tree line, and he hasn't come out yet. And he could see kind of most of the area, and he's like, if it would have come out of the tree line, I would have seen it, except for 1 or 2 spots where it could have maybe stayed in a tree line and moved out. But he's like, no, I think it's still right where you guys, exactly where you bet it. And I said, he goes, have you guys tried calling? And I'm like, we've been calling the whole time. And he's like, oh man, I can't hear a thing. And that was only 300 yards away from us.
The wind could have been, makes it hard sometimes.
And the river
and the snow and
the
rain.
snow. So I was like, well.
The wind and the snow and the river and the rain. Yeah.
So I was like, well, that moose probably can't even hear us from where we're at. Maybe. And I was thinking, if he's in the tree line, it's more our style to go and chase him down anyway.
Once Ben said he didn't leave the tree line, my motivation went quite a bit. I ran across the river without blinking an eye. I'm like, let's go.
I brought the boat down to inflate and cross on. And Aaron's like, I think we can just run across it.
Totally. Once Ben said it's still in the tree line, I'm like, if that tree, you'll call it in. Like, if it's there, we'll kill it. So I literally was like, F that boat. I'll wave to you. I'll find a spot. And I ran down. And now I'm like, something's going to die today, and it's going to be big because if it's still there. And it was funny. I crossed the river, and I was smiling because I was like, not everyone's going to be okay with that river crossing because it was sketchy. I got across, so waving, and now I'm back into the go, 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 go mode. Let's go up and shoot it. And Brian and I talked about this last night. You pretty much took the exact route. We were talking about being guided and unguided.
Yeah.
And when you're with a guide that does exactly what you do, there's no issues. When you're with the guide that does dumb, there's issues, right? And so when you took off, the whole time I'm thinking I'd go mid to top of that opening.
Yeah.
And that's what we both were talking about, and that's what you did. And it was,
and you're checking the wind the whole time, and
you got your moose incense sticking out.
Yeah, tell us about the moose incense.
Yeah,
is that a trade secret we need to keep from, or can you share?
No, it's kind of a 50-50. I've had it where I've had moose completely downwind, and they'll be sniffing, and they're not too sure, and I think it covers your scent enough and it tells you which way the wind's going at all times.
That's what I was using it for, was watching, because I felt like I was in India breathing that shit in the whole way, but I could see which way the wind goes.
And it's a Tinks moose nuts or moose.
Yeah, moose stick or
moose stick. So it's supposed to smell like moose, but it smells like incense.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in India, at a shrine.
But I was watching it, and the whole way up, I'm thinking if the wind goes bad and you don't catch it, I'll just say, hey, but it never blew to him, where he was at. I mean, it did a couple of times. We were so far away.
The prevailing wind seemed to just pick it back up and bring it back over.
Yep.
And you can watch that smoke go out and then swirl back.
When you got to where we were going to call from, immediately, and I'm sure all gun and bow hunters do it, but immediately, even though I had a gun in my hand with a bow, I'm looking at where it might come out and where to go. And there was a stump, and I told you, I was like, I'm going to go up to that tree and get ready. And I thought it was going to come out higher in that opening, and I was just going to tank it. And so Brian and I go down there, and you couldn't have designed a better rest, right? Like, literally, I'm like basically in the prone, but standing, you know what I mean? So I've got my elbows, and I'm just looking.
Yeah, I film you. You put the rifle up, and it just looks like
perfect.
It's custom made for shooting.
And I can hear you calling, and Brian's like, there's the moose. And I look at him like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't see it, dude. And you're what, 3 yards to my right?
3 yards to your
whatever
right.
is close.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you're. I was like, I don't see it. Are you sure it's a moose? And you're like, yes, I'm sure it's a moose. And I'm like, I can't see shit. I got a tree in front of me.
Aaron has a big tree in front of him, and I'm just slightly to the right of that tree, and I can just make out paddles in a black head through the trees, and that's what I was looking at.
And I only asked him if he was sure, because then you're into the position we're in. Up there was way deeper snow, a couple feet. Yeah. Do I try to get to Brian and shoot it?
And we're in a ditch.
Yeah. So, which is where I wanted to be before the moose came out, because it was hiding us or hidden. But then I'm like, well, there's 3 spots I can eat it, right? And it could see me, or do I just wait? and then you moved somewhere in there.
Yeah, because me and Ben could see it right when he came out.
Yeah.
We were kind of back and then up a bit.
Yeah.
We could see it right when it came out. And
you went higher to pull him out of my wind.
Yeah.
And the real concern was if he drops below, he'll catch our wind.
Yeah.
He'll be downwind of us.
Well, and now I'm like, I'm not, I've made up. Now, keep in mind that if we blow this moose out, I'll probably cry because I'll have to go float the river, or we all will. And it's a big moose.
Yeah.
And we're cold. It's like day 7, 8 or something. And it's
out of a 30-day trip where we've hunted for almost 60 straight, right?
Yeah,
so
and it's
not
horrible weather.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as bad as it can get. I mean,
well, yeah. But you went up higher,
Yeah.
and I could hear you raking.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my mind, that should do it. And he just, boom, boom, starts coming. And I'm like, oh, I see it now. I definitely see it now. And I'm thinking, it clears that tree. There was a patch between the willows and the tree. I'm like, it clears that tree, walking or not, I'm going to kill it. And I probably shot it, we don't know, 80 to 120 yards away or
somewhere in there.
pretty close.
Yeah.
It's
I probably
close.
could have bow killed it. Of course, it never would have panned out that way if I had a bow in my hand because it was coming to you fast.
Yeah, it probably would have come within 50 yards, though, easy.
On that angle. Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty – I think it would have to – I mean, you tell me, Devin, but it seems like things would have to go pretty far south at that point for that to have not worked out with a bow.
Yeah, no, once you start raking in there, coming in like that, it's pretty hard to screw it up.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't have any regrets shooting it with a gun. I mean, my big thing was,
I thought it was cool because it was so close up.
Well, Patrick,
even gun or bow,
constantly,
you're wanting that close encounter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Patrick constantly hounds me to gun hunt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Patrick, the owner of Kafaru, he wants me to be a gun hunter, and I just like shooting him with a bow or whatever. And he asked me like 4 times while he was here, why don't you pick up the rifle, Aaron? And I'm like, I told him, if it gets later in the hunt, man, and I said, I really want the meat, and we've already eaten some of the meat. It's like the best steak I've had. But anyway, so we ran over, and I could give it what I shoot it with anyway. So I ran over, and it's dead, and that 338 doesn't mess around. There was been in the snow, a pretty big blood or all the way around it, 360 degrees, and so anyway, not to lead this on, we went, me and Ben went. No, we all three.
Yeah,
went
all
back.
3 of us went
Back. Yep, and kind of figured out how to get it out and what kind of shit show that would be. And we grabbed. You stayed and covered up the crime scene because we wanted to get some photos, and it was
There's blood. I mean, the snow was completely red everywhere.
And at this time, the rain is worse than it was. It really was raining, and we grabbed.
Quit snowing. Sleeting and turned into just flat out rain.
Well, we took probably 65 photos. There's like 8 that didn't have water spots on them of the moose because it was raining that hard. And you're trying to lean over, but the wind's blowing, and the wind's blowing in the direction you're taking the photo.
And I cleaned the lens like
every few shots,
and you're like, and you're right back. It's just coming down. You couldn't do it.
But we got good photos. Yeah. And it never stopped raining the entire time we cleaned it. We walked back. We came back. And the pack out was, you got the 4-wheeler or the Rhino
across the river
with the trailer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then we still had to pack it down.
Yeah. It wasn't horrible by any means. But anyway, some redneckery and some bushcraft.
It was a great pack out.
Is
that it?
Yeah. Unless you want to go on top of the pack.
Try to go on top of the pack.
There you go. Oh, there's a leg there.
No.
Let's go. I think that might work. I don't know.
It was a great pack.
It was actually, talking moose hunting, both pack outs, even though yours is pretty remote,
when we ran
it still turned out to be pretty easy.
The newfies on the road when we're coming out there, and I don't know if you ever talk to a newfie, you can't understand shit they say, but like, hey, where'd you get that? And Brian was like, oh, over there, Ben. And they're like, on the other side of the river?
They didn't believe it for a while. They kept asking again and again, and they kept pointing, right right down the hill. You mean right there? And we're like, no, over there. And they're like, you mean right there?
Yeah.
No, over there. And finally it sunk in, and they were like, yeah, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, basically. They're super cool people. I've talked to, more or less understand what they're saying. I've talked to them a few times. Some of them are better than others where you can understand. The one old guy last year, Cal was just sitting there. He had me come in the tent to shoot with him, and I was like, so where are you from? And he's like, oh, Vancouver. Vancouver? Yeah. I'm like, oh, what do you do down there? And he was a janitor, I think. And it took a minute, right? And I'm like, oh, you're a janitor. He's like, yeah. Like, you like see homos naked? That's cool, dude. Right? He's looking at me, yeah, I'm a janitor, But anyway, they were super cool. They actually pulled you up the last 8 feet on the quad.
They gave me a winch point.
A tug, yeah, exactly. So we ended up driving back right at dark, basically.
Yeah.
By the time,
Yeah.
Worked out pretty good. And then we got
And your
back
moose is great. What is it, 40?
48, I think.
48, yeah. I think we ended up figuring it scored 170. We never did actually.
No, we didn't score it.
I scored it and didn't count the bases.
Yeah.
But
Pretty cool moose, man.
It's like a 170s type moose, 180. I don't know roughly. But it's
and then
great moose for this area.
We ate moose meat.
Yeah, we ate a lot. We ate a
last
load of moose
5
meat.
days.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
Phenomenal.
Well, we were able to get back and cut it up, and you can never see the future, and you always look back. And I try not to ever regret anything, which generally doesn't happen with me because I just like seeing to shoot. I am glad there is nothing that happened after I shot that moose that made me think, "Wow, I just wish I would have held out," because it pissed rain for the next 3 days.
3
Solid.
days, yeah.
Solid.
You
and I went
not
to
even
go
snow. It was just
rain. Well, I think
cold.
worse was you and I went up to go whack some chickens, or you were going to shoot some grouse, and we got up the road and it was snowing so bad, heavy, giant snowflakes. You couldn't hardly see anything.
No.
I mean, it wasn't like I was like, wow, I really should have held out so we could have floated that river. I'm like, man, there's no way in hell I'm going to ever float that river this time of year, not this weather. So it was a good thing. What's up, Aaron? So the river was like, Aaron just walked in. How bad was that river when you guys went back up there?
Probably 4 feet higher than when you guys crossed it.
man.
So Aaron Evans and Clay, we talked about earlier, shot a bear. I think I told you should be able to cross it fine. It wasn't that deep. When you got back, you're like, you're full of shit. There's no. You said it was 100 feet higher than it was.
100 feet
Wider.
Wider.
Yeah, higher. Wider.
4 feet
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah, higher. Yeah, flood the town. Yeah, wider. So you guys couldn't. You had to go past it,
all the way up and back.
hooked around. Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean that when we crossed it, it was fine, and we.
You sucker. Are you sure you want to stay on for that? Go ahead. Great, now I gotta walk across. Oh. No way! Oh my gosh.
We got back here, and then you ended up going to a different spot the next day when we didn't know where you guys were at or what we were doing. So we just chilled, right? And then you came back and shot a grizzly in a blizzard.
2 days later.
2 days later, yeah, 2 days later, which was crazy with Clay. So it's been quite an adventure.
But yeah, the weather. It definitely would have been an adventure.
Yeah,
on the
sure.
river, but we'd have been wet.
Yeah,
We'd be definitely using that stove.
Yeah.
So
I lost my train of thought there. Oh, but yeah, we're heading to Alberta now, and Alberta's, I don't know, 11 hours away or something. So we're going to head out here in a few hours and hopefully shoot a big mule deer. The Alberta trip was the one I was looking forward to. I wanted to shoot a moose, and I really wanted to meet. But the Alberta trips, we had a lot of fun in Alberta. But this is the tail. I'm trying to stay super motivated because this is the tail end of
a month long.
Well, almost
6
3 months
week.
in the field, but a month long straight.
Yeah.
You looked at me yesterday, and I was telling you how much I've been in the field this year, and you were like, girlfriend can't like that, can she? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure she's not liking it right now.
I don't know if I can ever do this again. Like,
you can
I love
always
it.
do it again. You just may not have any shit in your house when you get home.
I miss the wife and the kids a lot. It's a long stretch, so
yeah.
But it has been wild time.
Yeah.
Hi! Easy! Get out of here!
Well, when it came, did you see me? I was like, I'll dive behind Brian. Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah,
Wild
we got
time.
two giant for here, moose in the back of we got everything pretty much loaded up. That was a shit show. Like I said, I stole Lander's freezer, but she'll be fine with that. Got the moose back there and all our gear, one bow that's broke, and a lot of muddy crap that I just didn't want to clean. It's pretty bad. So,
Yeah.
But anyhow,
Well,
cool. We should wrap this up.
Yeah, folks, thanks for tuning into the podcast. Stay gritty.
Oh, they're going to get the winch out, I think. Ben might be going in to drink.